Welcome to The Common Ground, where we explore how effective communication can build bridges between you and your market. Here's your host, Sterling McCormick.
This is going to be a little longer than usual because it's going to be a new concept to some business owners. And to other business owners who know about the concept, there are nuances that are going to take a little more exploration to understand. This is by no means a deep dive, but we're going to wet our beak with the topic and explore it more in depth later in the series. Today, we're diving into the art of storytelling in business communications. I say art, but there really is a science to it as well. Now, when I say storytelling, I'm not talking about reading a big ornate fantasy book to your daughter at bedtime or crafting some Hollywood-style epic. Not at all. I'm talking about using real, relatable life stories to connect with your audience in a way that feels genuine and memorable. Why storytelling? Well, think about the last time a story really stuck with you. Maybe one of your friends told you about an incredible adventure they had on their vacation, or even a heartfelt story shared by another brand online. Airbnb is masterful at this. They'll show a lovely couple or a group of friends having super memorable, fun, or sentimental experiences, all thanks to the Airbnb they rented. They'll include reminders that Airbnb is at the base of the message, like they'll show a note left by the host, or they'll make sure to add a couple of establishing shots of the home. But the main part of the story is always the people, the vacationers. And it's effective because we can all relate to vacation stories. We all have them, some good, some nightmares, but we want to have wonderful experiences on vacation. So seeing someone else's story as they live out what we want for ourselves captures us. Stories grab our attention and make ideas stick. They connect on an emotional level and make complex ideas much easier to digest. And speaking of emotional, the company Lyft came out with a long-form animated ad a few years ago called June. I suggest you all look for it on YouTube. It's easy to find. It's about 7 minutes long. Again, it's called June, and it takes you on an emotional roller coaster, but one that you love. I have to give a standing ovation to the marketers that came up with that. I'm not going to spoil it, but I would love for you to watch it and let me know in the comments why you think it's effective, or why you think that I think it's effective. I want to talk about using your own brand's company story. Let's say you're talking about how your business got started. You could just say, we launched in 2020 to help businesses with their marketing. But instead, imagine sharing the moment that sparked your whole journey. I'm using my brand strategy company, Dream State, as an example here. I've been a professional graphic designer since the late 90s. Since then, I've added video production, web design and development, social media marketing, drone videography, and other things to my repertoire. Along the way, I was tasked with doing logo design many times. I'll be honest, at the time, I hated it. It was not fun. The client wouldn't have any idea what they actually wanted, so they would use vague directions like, make it pop, or a little less spongy. Like, these are real examples, folks. Like, those are actual directions I got, and it always ended up being completely subjective. It all boiled down to whether the boss liked the color or shape or whatever, instead of it being about whether it would resonate with the audience while representing the brand. Thankfully, several years ago, I came across people like Chris Doe from the future, Stephen Horahan, and Marty Neumeier, who introduced me to legitimate brand strategy. It changed my whole world. Instead of designing something to make it pretty, I began finding out what the heart of the brand I was designing for was really all about before I even thought about putting pen to paper and designing something. Once I had that information from the company, I could then start thinking about what shapes, what colors, what fonts, what imagery, and what other elements would speak to their audience. Then I could start designing something that created a solid communication between the company and their customers. And I decided that that was the only way to do it. And that's how Dream State was born. All I just did was tell you the truth, but it's a story. And that story will resonate with Dream State's audience because I know that Dream State's customers care about the meaning behind the elements of their brand. It's why they look for companies like ours and why they hire us. But also, it's a personal story that boils down to my emotions, the emotions that I felt that drove me to create Dream State. For your brand, whether it was an inspiring conversation, a problem you couldn't ignore, or even a mistake that showed you what was missing in the market, your real story doesn't just say why you started, it shows why you care. And when people know why you care, they're much more likely to care too. I talk a lot about trust on this podcast, and it's very appropriate here because stories also help build trust. Sharing genuine customer success stories lets your audience see themselves in your brand. It's the difference between saying we deliver results and showing how your work made a difference for someone else. And let's be honest, most people trust a customer story over any one of your sales pitches. My favorite example of this is Dove. Dove's Real Beauty campaign is a picture of everyday women celebrating natural beauty and body positivity. By highlighting the experiences and the perspectives of a highly diverse selection of women over the years, Dove has fostered trust with audiences who see authenticity and empathy at the heart of their brand. And here's the thing you may not have noticed about this. Dove started this campaign in 2004. Way before so many companies decided it was a good idea to celebrate diversity, body positivity, or even showcasing the faces and the perspectives of real everyday women. So since they did it without seeing that it was the trendy thing to do and without getting some kind of social pressure to do it, you know it's actually coming from a place of authenticity. They were way ahead of their time and they never stopped telling those stories. So now, in a time when a lot of brands are being fake and trying to capitalize on inclusivity, Dove still stands out because we know they mean it. So here's the key. Please be authentic. People connect with real, not perfect. Sharing the challenges and lessons you've learned along the way makes your story human. It lets your audience know that you're not just a brand, but a group of real people they can relate to. Or if it's your personal brand, that you are real. And don't forget, storytelling isn't limited to what you say, it's also how you say it. Just like your visuals, just like your social media presence, and just like the tone you use in your emails. Every piece of content is an opportunity to show your brand story. Here's a tip that's easy to implement in your marketing. Keep it in the front of your mind. Next time you're creating a piece of content, stop and ask yourself, what's the story here? And why would my audience care? Stop and put yourself in their shoes. At this point, you should already know your target audience well enough to be able to answer that question. Keeping that perspective can transform even simple messages into something that resonates with them. If this is a new concept to anyone listening, it might be hard to think of the story and build a message around it, and that's totally understandable. If you do find it difficult, try doing it the other way around. Draft your message as you had planned, and then look at it and ask if you're telling the relatable story that's there. And it is there. You just have to look for it if it doesn't scream out at you. Next time on The Common Ground, we'll explore how to make customers see your worth by communicating your value. Catch you in the next episode.